If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello, and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew.
This is Joe.
And we're back with you with our Trinity episode. We mentioned this last time. We said it'd be a book report of sorts. And, like most book reports, I was kind of lazy and kind of procrastinated.
You can get any school project done in 72 hours. That's what one of my employees told me the other day. You give them 2 weeks, we're still going to do it in the last day or two.
I mean, it works that way. I did it in the last, 12 hours. A little pull, making a little bit of sausage for you there. That's how it's made, brother. But the DC Trinity episode, to get back on track. So for those who are unfamiliar, that is Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They're known as the Trinity because they are the big three for DC Comics. Just a little bit of quick history. Well, it's not quick, but Superman, he first debuted in Action Comics issue 1 back in 1938. That's the first issue that was considered the beginning of the superhero genre. He was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. As for Batman, he was created about a year later in 1939 in Detective Comics issue 27 by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. And then lastly, Wonder Woman came out a couple years after Batman in 1941 in All-Star Comics issue 8, created by William Moulton Marston and H.G. Peter. So as you can see, or as you can hear, they've been around for a good long while now. We're over the 80-year mark. And so they're the foundation, they're the pillar of DC Comics. Marvel kind of has a similar thing with the Human Torch, Captain America, and Namor the Submariner, but it doesn't really get the same level of notoriety since they're not kind of the big tunas at their company. But the DC Trinity, they're known worldwide. You can go anywhere across the world and somebody's seen the Superman or Batman logo before. And they're some of the most expensive comics that you can buy their first appearances. I'd say, honestly, all three of them are very collectible in general. In order, I would say Batman, Superman, then Wonder Woman. As far as if you're going to collect them, which ones probably are going to hold their value best. But Action Comics 1 did sell for $3.2 million back in 2014. So these books are big tuna. That's actually the most expensive comic book sale there ever has been. So obviously there's a reason that these three are so popular, and that continues into today. So I would say that the Trinity is more of like a colloquial name for those. I mean, it's not typically like something that they're actually referred to in universe or anything like that. It may happen, but if so, that's more of a recent progression. It actually wasn't even a title until 2008.
That's what I was going to say. I think recently it is titled. They done like a second volume not too long ago titled DC Trinity. And so I think it started as kind of more of like a colloquial thing, but now it's almost like a brand, kind of like how World's Finest was often associated with just Batman and Superman. Then Trinity came out to kind of reflect those three. And then obviously if you add to that group, then it kind of becomes the Justice League. But no, I mean, when you say DC Trinity, those three definitely now come to mind.
I like those points that you made. They actually led into what else I was going to hit you with. So did you know that the first time they actually all appeared together was actually on the cover of All-Star Comics issue 36? They were running around with the JSA. It's a classic cover. Superman's running around with an American flag, kind of hoisting that up, and everybody else is kind of flying or running around with him. I don't have the year on that, but All-Star Comics 36, that's in probably about, 1946, I would imagine. So they all graced the cover together like fairly early on. Now, for those familiar, the Justice League debuted in Brave and the Bold issue 28. That was the late 50s, 58 in the Silver Age of comics, in and around there. Forgive me if I'm a year or two off. So Superman and Batman, they were in the first issues of Brave and the Bold's Justice League run. They were never actually really shown on any of the covers during that time, but they did appear within the book. They did also have some notable absences during that time, even though we all think of them as, foundational Justice League members. Like, you can't imagine the Justice League without them. But they were, they weren't always in those books back then because they were actually trying not to overshadow the other Justice Leaguers, such as the Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, all of them. So Batman and Superman kind of got pushed away because they feared, overpowering the Justice League with Batman and Superman because, as you mentioned, World's Finest was doing really well at the time, and that was led by the two of them. But with that, they kind of all did start to come together, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, and they were shown together more and more. At times, early on in the Silver Age, they would take their leave of absence for, different reasons and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of history. Obviously, we know how they all are today. Past that early period, I mean, it became pretty obvious pretty quick that, that kind of group was going to be together a lot, whether they were in the Justice League together or, through any of those earth-shattering events that started happening, into the post-crisis period where, the unity of those three specifically has just grown and grown, as you've mentioned, to the point where now they are a literal trinity and have received a book titled as such.
Yeah, it's like the mind, the body, and the Holy Spirit, right? Because like when you think of the Justice League, I mean, like it's so expansive now, but they are the root of it. I think what's important about the title is that it like embodies or showcases the unity and their strengths together, because all three characters are definitely like the pillars of the Justice League, but they have their weaknesses too. And when all three are together, it's a pretty important coming together. And if you listen to our episode on Kingdom Come, at the very end, when they're all talking at the table, you kind of also get the feeling of the Trinity, even though they don't really refer to it that way. And you see the three collaborate a lot in a lot of like the crisis events as well. They all contribute their own unique thing to the Trinity. Like Superman represents hope, Wonder Woman represents like the truth with her lasso, and Batman kind of represents, I don't know, he's just kind of a genius.
Yeah, just being clever, just the human element.
Yeah, I don't being human, I would say. But they got their weaknesses too, right? And it kind of gets camouflaged when all three are together because Superman wants to be accepted by humans. Batman's
probably, a human.
Yeah, wants a family of his own, which would explain all the Robins he's taken in over the years. And Wonder Woman comes from Paradise Island, right? So it's like she probably wants to feel like she belongs too. But no, I mean, Superman's really powerful. Batman's the world's greatest detective, and Wonder Woman is kind of like the support of the group, a little more of like
she'd do anything for her homies.
She rides.
She does ride.
Yeah.
Horses and the New 52 Superman. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, but you can trust her. She kind of is like the glue that brings it all together. You often see like Superman will console her or whatever, and same thing for Batman. So the three are definitely what makes the Justice League so great.
Yeah, and they all, while, working, effortlessly and amazingly as a team, they all do still maintain their strong solo identity. Like, becoming part of the Trinity's never detracted from them. Like, they've never become reliant on, being around those other characters. They've always had their own identity, their own world, but they work so flawlessly with the other characters, especially with the long history that they have together. It's great storytelling, and when you're crafting like an overall universe, it's good to have like your foundation, because even if they were to really cut back and do everything like that, or start over to a degree, which they don't need to do again, but if they had to, I mean, where to start again. It's with these three characters. Speaking
of storytelling, what's your favorite story from all of these characters individually?
Okay, so I have like one or two for each here, except Wonder Woman, which is a point I wanted to make, that all three of these characters do rule. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, with the collectability, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman in that order, that's probably my order of how much I enjoy them. And probably the same of, the general population's, feelings towards the characters. Wonder Woman deserves all the respect in the world, especially for how awesome she's been through time. But I will say she does have some of the least notable stories of the crew, at least relative to the other two. But I believe that she would deserve a bit more care and attention nowadays, which, I just don't think that for being part of the Trinity that she's getting the level of care that she needs to kind of maintain that status. But I'm sure you'll agree for Wonder Woman. We'll start off there. Wonder Woman 84 by George Perez.
That's facts.
I mean, it really reestablished, her old mythos for, a modern generation, kind of made it more accessible. And, while the old stuff is awesome, especially as a collector, I don't really think it's the most riveting reads at times. You don't really think back to like, oh, yeah, that Wonder Woman arc, or her, like, what's her seminal story. She's always great when it's like she's kind of part of a story, but when they give her the chance to lead, it's not I mean, it's not her fault, obviously. It's the writer, because she's just a fictional character, but you know what I mean. You never put the blame on Wonder Woman being boring. It's just kind of what people are giving her to work with. Moving past that, though, I'll go to Superman. My favorites, I feel like you have to go with All-Star Superman.
That's facts.
I mean, it's probably, the most well-rounded and best told Superman story there is. You can make your concessions for anything else. But then other than that, I also like For All Seasons, kind of just getting to the core of Superman. Very soft country boy, like Boy Scout, ma and pa, drinking some milk, doing stuff like that. So, I like stuff like that too, that kind of just gets at the core of the character. And then, sorry to steamroll through, but into Batman, I'm probably going to say, it's kind of tough because there's so many, but probably Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison. I actually really did like that looking back. Not even just the Bruce stuff, even though he's the main OG. It's just that Batman as a character is that rich. Not literally, but figuratively. Well, both. But then I also had like Batman Hush and stuff like that as kind of up there, because I wanted to put like, I was thinking like Year One and stuff like that. And it is really good and, central to the character. But I'm trying to think about like what Batman title I enjoy the most. And I thought that those were a bit more exciting, I suppose. What about you?
Well, I definitely agree with Wonder Woman. What is it, Volume 2 with George Perez, Gods and Mortals. I definitely agree with All-Star Superman but I'm excited that James Gunn also enjoys that story. He's been posting a lot of the cover of issue 1 in reference to the Superman movie coming up. So I like that at least that's the framework of the character moving forward. But Batman, he's got the most amount of good stories. So it's
Agreed.
hard to pick one, but I'm going to pick one that doesn't really represent him the best. I still like Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. I liked it so much I bought the animated movie, both parts 1 and 2.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just a good story. But no, I mean, the fact is that they've all made like an indelible impact on the hobby. And to your point, they're globally known because of how much of an impact that they have outside of comic books. I guess my last question for you would be, while we're talking about these characters and their prevalence in pop culture and society, who are your favorite actors that have played these characters?
Oh, right. That's a loaded question. So I have two for each, honestly. Two different degrees. We'll go back. We'll start with Wonder Woman. We'll go with Linda Carter just because she's like the OG. She cool. But let me tell you who's like my real number one, which maybe, this might be sacrilege to the OG truthers out there, especially Linda Carter fans, but Susan Eisenberg, the voice actress behind the Justice League animated. I honestly feel like when I think of, Princess Diana, Wonder Woman, I imagine her to kind of sound like her, act like her, look like her. I mean, she's a voice actress, so I mean, she's not doing, the whole deal. But, when I think of like seminal Wonder Woman, I do think her. Who would you say for Wonder Woman?
I think it's got to be Linda Carter because of the impact she made. Now, granted, I'm 28 years old. I didn't grow up watching that shit,
Agreed. I mean, that's my thing.
Like, I didn't grow up with it, but in the same breath, like, I understand how much of an impact she made playing the character. I respect it. Part of the reason why Wonder Woman's so important. So she's just kind of made that like iconic status. But I didn't even think about the animated voice actors and their part in this. So I might agree with you as well. But if I had a second name to throw out there, second to Linda Carter, I would say Gal Gadot. I'm not going to miss her if she doesn't come back for the whole reboot, because the second movie wasn't anything to recommend to anybody. But
No, it was ass.
the first movie was really good, though.
Agreed. Cool. Well, let's go on to Superman. Do you want to start us off here?
Superman? Sure. I mean, that's my favorite character. The same reason Linda Carter's important is the same reason Christopher Reeve is my favorite Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those first two movies are so solid, and even Smallville paid homage to how important of a Superman he was back in the day. But that kind of leads to my honorable mention. Tom Welling never played Superman. He only played Clark Kent, so I can't say that he's my Superman. I would still give it to Christopher Reeve, but I think Tom Welling or arguably Henry Cavill could make an honorable mention.
Word. I agree with you. Cavill, if he came back, I'd be cool with it. If he doesn't, I'm not going to be upset. I think he had the potential. He looked the part. They just never got anything good to work with. But I'm with you with Reeve. He was, I mean, literally a picture of the guy would be better than, some of the Supermen we've got. Well, because he literally is he embodies Superman. I mean, like literally even how he, like the difference between like him hunching a little bit and being Clark Kent into, standing upright and being Superman just really illustrated, how that could be feasible when you're like, oh, his secret identity is a load of baloney. But like, no,
Chris tricked us.
Yeah, the guy was smooth with it. But outside of him, I'm going back to the animated so shouts out George Newbern. He actually did Justice League animated as well. Honestly, when I do think a lot of these characters, I just feel like the voice actors for the Justice League animated series specifically really nailed it for me. And I know that you've gone through and listened or watched Superman, the animated series. Shouts out Tim Daly just as a special. He didn't actually have the same voice actor all the way through, even though I feel like it's kind of hard to tell, at times. But shouts out those dudes. But then let's just top it off with our boy Batman here. And if you can follow trends, you know what I'm going to do. Kevin Conroy, rest in peace. One of the GOAT Batmen, honestly. Batman of a generation even. But him, and then I'm going to go with the other OG of Michael Keaton. Those movies just fit the vibe more to me of what I'm looking for in a Batman, especially with like Nicholson Joker and all that. Some of y'all really on the Christian Bale wagon. I understand it. I don't know if I have some like internalized anti-hipster thing within me that's like, no, I can't do it. He's not number one. But while he was awesome, I don't know. Michael Keaton just kind of does it for me, the look, the behavior, the flying around. Those are my guys. What about you?
It was hard. I put a lot of thought into it. Christian Bale is my favorite Batman so far.
He rules.
It's hard, you know what I mean? Because you gotta let it breathe for a while, and that's what makes Linda Carter, Christopher Reeve, and Michael Keaton so iconic. And I do still think that Michael Keaton is the most iconic Batman, the same way that he'll probably show up in Flashpoint, and people will be like, oh yeah, like that Spider-Man effect when they brought in Tobey Maguire. Like there's nothing like the first person that hits the nail on the head, the first person to break the ice and, mold the character the way it should be. And so Michael Keaton really broke the grounds and created the framework for the character. So he's my honorable mention. It's pretty close though. It's not like the split is like 60-40. I could have said Michael. Deal. Yeah, I could have said Michael Keaton.
Same here.
But Christian Bale had for it being something a little more modern, it still felt like it was a new take on the character. So when you can have somebody like Michael Keaton that already kind of damn near perfected it, and you bring somebody else on to make the character still interesting, I think Christian Bale did an awesome job.
I agree with you. It kind of just depends on my mood, because like you said, it's so close that it's just kind of 1A, 1B type thing. Because I think Batman Begins might be probably the Batman movie for me.
And that was part of why I decided to, because not only is Batman Begins my favorite Batman movie, live action. But also, I do think that his trilogy was better than Tim Burton's trilogy, even though Michael Keaton is one hell of a Batman.
Yeah, we could have said George Clooney with bat nipples and the bat credit card and all that. You're uncultured, bro. He rules. He gets too much shit, dude. With
Poor
having his
guy.
grown ass Robin and fucking Mr. Freeze. I don't know. Really campy. It's reminiscent of like Adam West. I mean, if you look at it through that frame, it's much more fun. Because I mean, if you look at the movies and you're like, oh, I want a sweet Batman movie. I mean, yeah, they're goofy as shit. But then you gotta like think about what you're watching. You're like, yeah, I'm watching a goofy Batman movie. I mean, we got Bane in that, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze. Got them all. It was pretty sick. But then we started getting into the Val Kilmer era, and I don't know about that as much. In between then, post Keaton. But I think you get our general vibe here of like who we enjoy the most. I maybe I'm a bit wishy-washy, but I wouldn't say my stances are too firm. Like I said, between like the 1A and 1Bs of some of these actors and actresses. A lot like when it's done well, it's done well. So I mean, a lot of respect to most of the actors and actresses who've played these characters. Some of them can, take it or leave it though. But that being said, I don't really think there's too much more we can expound upon you that you couldn't read on a wikia by some nerd in a basement somewhere who has extra time than we do, even that can write some in-depth stuff about their new Earth appearances and then the prime Earth appearances and then but you can check out Wikipedia, honestly, if you really are that bored. I mean, I've done it a long time ago. There's a reason why I have as much knowledge as I do. I've done a lot of reading comics and a lot of reading Wikipedia on the comics I haven't been able to read and stuff like that. So I would recommend doing your own research, watching a lot of the media that's available to you. If you are a Trinity fan or, you like at least one of the characters, I would still recommend watching the Justice League animated show if you want a pretty good, faithful, rendition of what the characters are about and you can see their teamwork in action. I would skip the Snyder Justice League movie if that's what you're looking for. Just go to the animated stuff instead. Batman Begins rules, Batman from '89 rules, the original Superman movies rule, the first couple at least, the Linda Carter series, stuff like that. If you're interested in watching all that stuff, you'll have plenty of time to get the gist of what these characters are about. That being said, though, this is the end of our show. If you've got questions for us, if you've got comments, if you've got any of that, you know where to find us. If you don't, if you're new here, by the way, thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Welcome aboard. You can find us on Instagram at CBJ Pod, Facebook CBJ Podcast. If you want to go on YouTube, if you want to go on any of the podcast platforms, we're anywhere there. There's star ratings, reviews, stuff like that. You don't got to do it. I'm not going to force you to, but we would appreciate it. Any podcast would. Yada, yada, something about the algorithm, yada, yada. It helps us. And yeah, I mean, Comic Book Junkies podcast. If you're just generally on Google, you can't find us any other way somehow. That's how you'll find us. That being said, do we have anything for next time or are we free to go?
We're definitely going to come at you with another story to read. I don't know what we're reading yet, but
it's a mystery story.
We will definitely come up with something to review for you as far as stories go. So I would say just tune in and look forward to that.
Yeah, to tune in specifically to CBJ Pod on Instagram. I will be, once it's determined and finalized, I'll be reading it. And if you like to know a little bit in advance of what we're doing, I do like to post our reading material usually a week or two in advance. So keep your eyes peeled for that and you'll know what we're up to next.
All right, guys. I appreciate you listening. I hope you guys like the Trinity as much as we do. And we will be back in 2 weeks.
Catch you later.